So the last time South Bend, Indiana mayor and Democratic presidential hopeful Pete Buttigieg was here, we were like, Pete who, and how do you say that name? But now he's being hailed as the one to watch in election 2020 and even being compared to Barack Obama. Wow, that's something. Who is the second coming of Obama, huh? We'll see about that. My prayers may have been answered if that's true. So welcome, Mayor Buttigieg.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Mayor, when you were here last time, as I said, but you know, you were just starting. Nobody really knew who you were. They couldn't pronounce your name. Yeah. That has changed in a very short time. How do you feel about it?
It's exciting. It's exhilarating. People still have trouble pronouncing my name, but at least they know who I am. And, you know, the most compelling thing for us is that the more people hear our message, the more they seem to be responding. So it's gone from kind of trying to prove that I have a place or ought to have a place at a table to really trying to win the day for the ideas that I'm bringing forward. Right. So it's kind of an out-of-body experience sometimes, but it's gone really well.
Do you have a nickname that can help people?
Well, you know, they call me Mayor Pete around South Bend, so that keeps it a little simpler.
But, you know, Jamie Shapiro, who's the executive producer of this segment, because I said I can't with this last name. She said it's Buddha Judge.
There you go. Yeah.
Buddha Judge.
Yeah.
Just like it looks, right?
No, it doesn't look like that at all. It's like Buttigieg.
You know, the last time you were here, Mayor Pete, we were all... we're trying to conduct a serious political interview with a presidential candidate. Joy.
Go ahead.
The last time that you were here, I was so impressed with the way you were talking about the middle of the country, because obviously you're from South Bend. Yeah. In the past few weeks, you've been traveling, speaking. You're really gaining a lot of momentum. I've seen you on Fox News. You're going and speaking to the other side of the aisle. You're speaking to people in red states in the middle of the country. Do you think that's partially why you're gaining so much traction, is instead of ignoring people in the middle of the country, you're trying to speak to them as well?
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, how can you win? An election is supposed to be about our whole country, the whole thing. And we can't just concentrate on those areas where people, for the most part, already agree with us. You know, growing up in Indiana, a place where lots of people had very different political views than I did, I also learned that I could earn respect, not so much by pretending to be something I wasn't, but by explaining in good faith why I believe what I believe to people who maybe believe differently. And so even if they have a different view on a certain issue or a somewhat different set of values, if they know that at least what you have to say is coming from a place of values, I think you get a lot of credit for that. I was a little surprised that I'm the only one who's been on Fox so far, because there are so many viewers who may never hear what our party has to say at all if we're never going on those channels and explaining what we believe.
They will be. I think they're all going to go over there pretty soon. Not to Hannity, but to talk to the rational ones.
Right. I said something earlier about you because I've been so impressed, more and more impressed every day. You're a military vet, a Harvard grad, a Rhodes Scholar. You went to Oxford. You are a concert pianist. You speak many languages, including Norwegian, that you learned because you wanted to read a book that wasn't in English. A real Renaissance man. And you said something, and a man of faith. And I talk about my Catholic faith on this show a lot. Now, the religious right believes they have the cornerstone on morality, yet they have backed this president. And you called him, I think, the porn president at one point.
Not exactly.
Not exactly, but something like that. And you said this: we need to see the emergence of a religious left in our country. What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, when I go to church and the scripture that I hear, it is about protecting the poor. It is about looking after those who are marginalized in society. There's a lot about welcoming the stranger, which to me includes welcoming the immigrant. And, you know, so much of what Christ's teachings are about have to do with the way that we take care of the least among us. And I see now in the White House this celebration of how powerful you can be and how rich you can be, as if that's the same thing as virtue. And it just doesn't land. Now, I get that different people have different interpretations of their faith. And I also get that as somebody entering a political process, it's my responsibility to be there for people from any faith or from no faith. So it's not about imposing my religious views. But I think for those of us who think that our morality is something that needs to be in touch with our religious faith personally, then it's really important to explain that this is not, no one party has a monopoly on faith.
What is it that they are hooking onto with Trump, do you think, on that side?
That's part of the mystery, right? I think at the end of the day, it's power, right? I mean, you try to figure out how the vice president, for example, who has maybe a different understanding of Christianity than I do, one that's largely about sexuality, But that's even stranger, because how did he then attach himself to someone who's getting caught writing hush money checks to porn stars? And that's part of what I was talking about in that town hall.
It's called hypocrisy.
Right, and the Bible is full of, it talks about this. It talks about hypocrites. It talks about Pharisees. It talks, frankly, political officials and priests don't come off that well in the text of the New Testament. And so, to me, faith is largely about humility. It's about humbling yourself in the service of others.
Well, that's the Jimmy Carter was like that, is like that.
Yeah.
That was his religion.
And that sense of servant leadership, I think, is something we need a lot more of. And I do think there are the stirrings out there in our country right now of a religious left that understands that living your faith might also have to do with paying more attention to those most in need.
That's right.
And not celebrating those who already have the most wealth and the most power.
Can we talk about...
Sorry to interrupt you, just because I think this is interesting, if you don't mind it. So for me, I don't like the framework of left and right in religion. Is there any way it could just be people of faith? And like, you know, for conservatives that maybe feel a little lost right now, are you still open to, you know, voters in that way? Because I don't like I think part of the problem we're all having right now is that everything is through the framework of a lens of left and right. And maybe it's just non-hypocritical faith instead of left and right.
Yeah, no, I think there's something to that. Look, again, my progressive values are connected to my interpretation of my faith, but that's not for anybody else. Everybody should be able to decide whether and if their understanding of faith has any political implications. But I think you're right. I mean, just sniffing out hypocrisy, whether it's around religion or anything else in the political process. And I think it's something in particular that my region, the Midwest, is really attuned to. We can tell. And also my generation that really puts a premium on authenticity. I think you have a much better chance of reaching, and of course we want to reach out to conservatives too, not by tricking them and pretending to be more, if I'm, you know, not aligned with somebody to where they shouldn't vote for me because I don't represent their values, then fine. But I'd like to reach more conservatives who just might, for the first time in a long time, because the Republican Party went through this hostile takeover by the current president, just might be open to different voices and different candidates.
Can we talk a little about the term Democrat socialist, democratic socialism? I'm from Miami. There's a lot of Venezuelan exiles, Cuban exiles, Nicaraguan exiles like me who fled socialism, who fled communism. And I think that term is being used as a scare tactic. It's being used to, you know, provoke sentiments of fear and reminders of those countries. What does the term mean to you? Can you explain it to America?
I think in many ways it's a term that's lost its meaning because it's being thrown around politically. I mean, I'll give you an example. The Affordable Care Act. This was a piece of legislation. It was a way to improve our healthcare system created by conservatives. It got started at a conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation. And then the first time anyone tried it, it was a Republican governor in Massachusetts. And then a Democratic president, Obama, basically stole this Republican idea that was based on market principles. And the moment it became associated with him, suddenly, people are calling it socialism. They're talking like it's the road to winding up in the Soviet Union if we do this, which was a scare tactic. But it's also one of the reasons why this term has lost its meaning. I believe that capitalism is this incredibly powerful force that can do a lot of good. But I guess in the same way people talk about democratic socialism, I want to talk about democratic capitalism.
So it's not irredeemable?